time is 1:50 p.m. We are back on the record.
Mr. Simrock, before you begin your questioning again, this is Michael Kim. Over the break, as we agreed with the defendants, we obtained from the defendants' counsel a copy of the sealed document that Mr. Simrock referred to earlier in the examination. We've shown it to the witness, and my understanding is it does not refresh the witness's recollection on any of the answers he gave, but since I'm not the witness, I'll just ask Mr. Browder to confirm that for the record.
I confirm that for the record.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Simrock.
Okay. Good afternoon, Mr. Browder. You're still under oath, you know that?
I do.
All right. So I'm going to show you what we're going to mark as Browder Exhibit 13. This is plaintiff's responses to defendant's first set of interrogatories. Basically what this is a list of questions we gave the government and they responded. And I want to direct your attention to page 4, which is the response to interrogatory 1, and to summarize it, it says, tell us what persons have knowledge or information on certain subjects, and you see your name there, right?
Yes.
All right. So it says you have knowledge of the $230 million fraud, defendant's knowledge of the $230 million fraud, which would be the Prevazone defendants referring to that. Membership and operation of the organization, defendant's contacts with the organization, the defendant's knowledge of the organization, defendant's intent or knowledge for the purpose of the money laundering statutes, the transfers described in the verified complaint, additional transfers that support the allegations in the verified complaint, the tracing methodology, tracing funds from the Russian treasury to the defendants, nature of the businesses operated by the defendants, and other information, including information relevant to the gravity and magnitude of the offense. Do you see that?
I do.
All right, so did you talk to the government before about this answer before it was given? And it was given in March, 24th of March, 2014. Did you talk to the government about this answer before it was given?
No.
Did they show it to you?
No.
Did they tell you that they tell you in February of 2014 the judge had set a trial date of March 30th or 31st, 2014? Did they tell you that?
Yeah.
Who told you that?
I don't recall who, but somebody in the government.
Well, somebody in the U.S. Attorney's office?
Yeah.
Was it Mr. Monteleone?
Could have been, but it might have also been one of the other people in his office.
Okay. And was this a telephone conversation or an email?
Telephone conversation.
All right. What else was said in that conversation about the trial date?
Just that there was a trial date coming up.
They asked you whether you would appear as a witness?
I believe so.
And what did you tell them?
Yes.
And did they tell you that they were informing the judge that you were their chief witness?
No.
So did you talk about what you would testify to?
No.
Just you would show up and you would testify?
Yeah.
And that was, how long was the conversation?
10 minutes.
Approximately when was it?
Sometime around the time period you specified.
February of 2014?
Yes, I guess. I mean, I don't remember the date, so.
They expressed concern about the trial date?
To the extent that this question is just calling for the witness's impressions of the opinions and mental impressions of counsel for the government, I'm going to request that the witness not answer on the grounds of work product protection.
Are you going to answer?
I'm going to respect the government's request.
Well, are you instructing him not to answer?
Since the party has claimed privilege, we have no position on the matter, but I'll instruct the witness not to answer until a privilege is resolved.
Okay. So, what information did you tell the government you had about the defendant's knowledge of the $230 million fraud scheme?
None.
What information did you tell the government about defendant's contacts with the organization?
I don't remember.
Do you have any information about defendant's contacts with this so-called organization?
No specific information.
Okay, so to be clear, the organization is the organization that is described in the complaint as the criminal organization that committed the $230 million fraud, right?
Right?
You understood that?
Yes.
Okay. So you have no specific information. You have any general information about defendant's contacts with the organization?
There were some theories that, I can't remember the details, but there were some theories about their contact with the organization.
Who had these theories?
People on my legal team,
And who are you referring to now?
lawyers.
Yeah, what lawyers?
Can I ask a privilege? Is this a privilege?
You can say the
question?
names of the lawyers
Okay.
that I think you've previously testified.
Right. So the Eduard Haradinov, Vladimir Postakov.
So they have theories. Do they have any facts to support their theories?
I'm going to request that the witness not answer to the extent that any answer might reveal communications pertaining to ongoing criminal investigations.
And on a separate note, I'm going to instruct the witness not to answer as to the contents of any of his discussions with lawyers which are attorney-client privileged, which I believe your last question would invade that territory. So I would instruct the witness not to reveal the contents of the communications, including as to what if any, facts they had.
Well, well, that raises a whole series of questions. What information do you have about ongoing criminal investigations relating to the $230 million fraud?
I'm going to request that the witness not answer any questions about the witness's knowledge of ongoing criminal investigations related to the $230 million fraud scheme, except to the extent that that information is already public. As to that, he can answer.
So we have no position on the matter, but since the party is claiming a privilege, I'll give the same instruction to the witness.
Okay, just so our position's clear, that if these privilege claims don't stand up in court, then Mr. Browder will have to come back and testify to these things.
Well, there's
Well-
no sense debating that now. I think there's another forum to debate that. So why
No,
don't you
I'm just
continue your questioning.
I'm just reserving our position,
I understand.
but I agree with you. There's no point in debating that. All right, what facts do you have about defendant's contacts with the organization?
None.
What facts do you have about defendant's knowledge of the organization?
None.
Do you have anybody in your organization with a theory about defendant's knowledge of the organization? Yes or no, you can answer that.
Yes.
And who's that?
Lawyers.
And who are they? Just the names.
Eduard Haradinov and Vladimir Postakov.
And have they told you what their theories are?
Same objection about privilege,
So
about the
you're
content of the
instructing-
communications.
To be clear, you're instructing them not to answer?
Correct. I'm instructing him not to answer this or any other questions that call for the contents of his conversations with his lawyers.
Okay, so we might speed this up so I don't have to ask a whole series of questions if you'll agree that anything on the subject matter you'd give the same instruction.
No. My objection is simply to the attorney-client privilege nature of the contents of the communications, not to the subject matter of what information he possesses.
I'll keep asking questions. So it says the defendant's intent or knowledge of the purpose for the purpose of money laundering. What do you know about the defendants, being the Prevozone companies, intent or knowledge of the $230 million fraud?
So are you asking me based on this sentence here or the $230 million fraud?
Well, for the purpose of, let me interpret that because that's legalese. So the defendant's intent or knowledge for hiding the proceeds of the $230 million fraud.
I'm sorry, so what, could you repeat the question?
Sure. So what facts do you have related to the defendant's intent or knowledge to cover up the proceeds or hide the proceeds of the $230 million fraud?
What I've read in the government's amended complaint.
Well, we've all read that. What do you have independent of that?
I don't have personally anything independent of that.
Do your people in your organization have theories about the defendant's intent or knowledge for the purpose of covering up the $230 million fraud?
I believe so.
And who's that?
Lawyers,
Same lawyers?
same lawyers.
Are you instructing them not to answer as to the substance of those conversations?
There's no question about it pending, but
All
to the
right,
extent
fine.
you ask it, I'll make the
Would
same
you-
objection.
Okay. So, what'd they tell you?
I object on the attorney-client privilege.
All right, but you're instructing them not to answer.
I'm instructing him not to answer that specific question. But I am not objecting generally to the subject matter, about which you're free to ask more questions.
Understood. So, did you have conversations with the government about the defendant's knowledge of the organization?
Yes,
All right. When were those conversations?
they are and were ongoing.
I see. Are you still collecting information related to this lawsuit?
As it becomes available, sure.
So you are still collecting information.
Any information that becomes available, yes,
Comes available how?
through any or every and any means.
So do you have people out asking questions for information?
There are investigations going on in other countries
That
involve the defendants,
All
where
right,
where more information is becoming available.
or which countries?
Again, I'm going to request that the witness not answer to the extent that that information is not already public.
I'm asking, to be clear, I'm asking what investigations is he aware of the defendants in other countries?
Right, and to the extent that the existence of those investigations is public, he can answer, and to the extent that it's not, we're requesting that he not answer.
So on this, we have no position on it, but since a party has claimed privilege over that the potential response to that question, I will instruct the witness not to answer until that's resolved.
All right, so what information do you have about other investigations of Prevozone or Mr. Katzev?
Other than what you just asked?
And isn't that the same?
Same question, yeah.
Didn't these guys just
To
object?
the extent
Well,
that
there
it's
was-
public, you can answer.
Oh, the public part of it, sorry. Go ahead.
So could you just repeat the question so I know what I'm answering?
Yes. What information do you have about investigations in countries other than the United States about Prevazone or Mr. Katz?
That is public.
That's public.
That is public. Well, that's the instruction you've been given.
The these two people have been, or the Prevazone and Katsev and Litvak are, I believe, subject to criminal investigation in Switzerland.
Have they been named as the subject of that investigation?
I don't know the formalities of the Swiss proceeding, but
Haven't they been denied a role as interested parties in that proceeding?
I don't know.
Well, so what makes you believe that they are under criminal investigation in Switzerland? Because I will tell you they've been denied access to that investigation as interested parties.
Objection to form.
Could you rephrase the question,
Yes.
please?
What makes you believe they are under criminal investigation in Switzerland?
Because their names are on documents in the court where they were requesting that Hermitage didn't have access to the file.
Their names are on documents in the court where Hermitage does not have access to the file.
No, no. Let's just start again.
Yes.
So they made a filing with the Swiss Criminal Tribunal to deny Hermitage access to the criminal case file, both
As-
Mr. Katsev and Mr. Litvak.
And from that you conclude they are under criminal investigation.
Why would two people unrelated to this? So my assumption.
Mr. Browder, you should answer
Yeah,
his question,
yeah,
not
sorry.
ask a question
Okay,
back
sorry.
to him.
Yeah, because I'm not going to answer your question.
He's not obligated to answer
Yeah,
any
sorry.
questions.
Okay, my mistake.
That's the basis for your conclusion that they're under criminal investigation in Switzerland.
And I'm trying to remember what other reasons. Off the top of my head, I can't remember any other reasons.
All right, what other countries have them under criminal investigation according to you?
To the extent that it's public.
They were under criminal investigation in Israel for money laundering.
And what happened with that?
Their money was seized, and they walked away.
They worked out a settlement, and then the court found there was no money laundering?
I'm not a legal expert, but that's not how I read it.
So what did you read?
That they had to give the money to the Israeli government as a penalty for money laundering.
What did you read?
I read the Israeli money laundering document.
Did you read the document that said the banker, who supposedly was the one money laundering, was acquitted because there was no money laundering?
That's not how I read it, but I'm not a lawyer.
I see. Were you the one who gave that document to the U.S. Attorney?
No,
Who gave that document to the U.S. Attorney?
someone on my team.
Who? Somebody on your team provided it.
Yeah,
And who provided it to your team?
I don't know.
Who on your team had that document?
I don't know.
Who did you see it? Who gave it to you?
I don't remember.
When did they give it to you?
I don't remember.
You know, we read your book, and you have all sorts of details going back, I don't know, 15 years about what people were wearing and what people did, and you had a great memory where it came to things you wanted to talk about. But you can't even tell me who gave you a document just, what, last year? This year?
Is there a question?
Yeah. You're telling me you can't remember who gave you that document this year?
Yes.
It was somebody within your organization?
Yes.
All right. Are you aware of any other criminal investigations of the defendants?
To the extent they're public.
Or Mr. Katsev or Mr. Litvak?
There's no other information that's not public that I can share.
And the information that you got from the U.S. Attorney? In other words, where did you get the information about other criminal investigations of the defendants, Mr. Katzev and Mr. Litvak?
To the extent that that question is asking about whether he got information about some type of non-public investigation, if any, I'm going to request that the witness not answer that question.
So because a party is claiming privilege over the potential answer to that particular question, I'm going to ask the witness or instruct the witness not to answer to the extent it reveals the information that the U.S. Attorney's Office just mentioned.
So to be clear, if he didn't get it from you, but he got it from somebody else, you're saying we can't have that information. You're asserting what privilege?
The law enforcement privilege with respect to ongoing criminal investigations that are not public.
And he got the information from a third party.
Yes, any information about an ongoing law enforcement investigation that's not public is something that's covered by the law enforcement privilege. Any interaction that he had with that information, with that investigation, any knowledge he may have of that investigation, to the extent that it's about something that's ongoing, it's criminal, it's not public, we're claiming the law enforcement privilege with respect to that.
Worldwide.
Well, I guess, yes, including with respect to I mean, if you're asking for a list of countries, then yes. If you wanted to ask country by country, I suppose I could answer it on that basis. But
I'm asking you, are you asserting this privilege worldwide? Any law enforcement agency, anywhere, information coming from a third party, you're claiming a law enforcement privilege?
based on the information that we have, we think that the answer to questions about the witness's knowledge of ongoing, non-public criminal investigations conducted by other countries would implicate the United States' law enforcement privilege. The United States, I can say, has been working with other countries in conducting investigations and has law enforcement interests in non-public criminal investigations conducted by other countries not being jeopardized by premature disclosure.
Okay, and you're instructing them not to answer on that basis, right?
This is not my privilege call. I'm not here to adjudicate.
Understood.
I'm just going to respond to specific questions. I understand that the last specific question elicited a privilege objection, and it's our position, and I'm instructing the witness not to answer while a party claims privilege until it has been adjudicated.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Are you familiar with a mutual legal assistance treaty request from the United States to Russia?
I've read about it in either the complaint or some of the docket filings.
Okay. And do you have any knowledge about how the Russian Federation responded to the United States with respect to that MLAT request?
I don't.
Have you ever seen that MLAT request?
No.
Have you seen the United States request to the Netherlands?
No.
Are you aware of any United States requests under mutual legal assistance treaties to any other country related to this case?
Only what I've read in the public documents on the docket.
Okay. Are you aware of any other informal requests from the United States to other countries in connection with this case?
No. No.
Do you know whether a grand jury has been impaneled to investigate the $230 million fraud?
Only what I've read on the public docket.
Have you testified before a grand jury?
Is this a privilege?
No. The witness doesn't have a privilege.
I think the witness just asked the question, so we're not asserting a privilege.
No, but
Yeah. No, the witness can answer.
Okay, no.
do you know anybody who's testified before a grand jury in connection with the $230 million fraud?
No.
So, going back to Exhibit 13, the United States represents that you have information concerning the transfers described in the verified complaint. Do you see that?
Could you just alert me to which subject matter this is?
Yeah, it's number 7.
Yeah, I see that.
Do you have information about the transfers? Do you know what transfers that refers to?
I'm not sure, no.
All right. So generally, it's the transfers from the Russian treasury through the various accounts. The chart that we were looking at, getting to allegedly the Prevazone account in Switzerland.
Right.
Do you have any information about those transfers?
No.
Did you ever tell the United States you had information about those transfers?
Well, we provided a complaint, or I should say, I submitted a complaint to the New York District Attorney's Office with all that stuff attached. So maybe they.
But you have no understanding about what those transfers are or
No.
what they mean.
No, I don't.
And it says additional transfers that support the allegations in the verified complaint. Now, this time I can't help you. I don't know what additional transfers, but do you know what additional transfers are referring to?
No.
Do you have information about additional transfers of funds that would support the allegations in the verified complaint?
No.
Do you know anything about the tracing methodology tracing funds from the Russian treasury to the defendants?
Just what I've read in our complaint.
In the Exhibit 1 that we looked at the beginning
I mean, I read the text of the complaint.
of the verified complaint.
I read the text of what we provided to the New York DA's office, and I read the verified complaint.
Okay. And when you say our complaint, you're talking about the one that went to the DA.
Right. The Hermitage Capital complaint.
Right. You read it, but you don't really understand it. Is that accurate?
I read it, but I can't explain the documents in the back.
So, information about the nature of businesses operated by the defendants. Do you have knowledge about that?
I have a little bit of knowledge about that.
What do you know about the nature of businesses operated by the defendants?
The defendants operate or I should say Dennis Kotzev operates a transportation company in Moscow.
And what else?
I think he has a hotel in Kislovsk or someplace like that.
That's in Russia?
Yeah.
What else?
Off the top of my head, that's what I remember.
Have you given that information to the U.S. Attorney's Office?
I don't remember if I did or didn't.
Yeah, how do you know that information?
I read it somewhere.
Read it where?
It's online.
What website?
I don't know.
Did you ever meet Dennis Kotzev?
No.
Have you? What? I'm told there's a problem with the audio. We're being told there's a problem with the audio.
Switch it down to that laptop.
It says reconnect. Reconnect all of your Russian friends. Camera and microphone access allow.
Maybe you ought to do it.
Hello, Russia. How are you all guys doing out there?
We're okay? All right, so have you conducted any investigation of the businesses operated by defendants?
No.
Has anybody in your organization?
Yes.
Who's that?
My legal team.
And what's the nature of the investigation?
I give the same objection that I believe that question would call for the contents of Mr. Browder's conversations with his legal team and subject to attorney-client privilege. So I instruct the witness not to answer that particular question.
Did you give information about the nature of the businesses operated by defendants to the government
Yes.
in documents?
Yes.
And what documents are those?
Information about their transportation company, etc.
And and you got all this information online, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Did you get any information from Dmitry Baranovsky?
No.
Well, you produced documents in response to a document request for information from Dmitry Baranovsky, and it included all the property records of Prevezone. Did you get that from Mr. Baranovsky?
No.
Did you get it from Mr. Stolbanov?
No.
Do you know Mr. Stolbanov?
No.
Andrei Stolbanov?
Don't know him.
Do you know Mr. Baranovsky?
No.
You called him in one of your pleadings human rights campaigner. Do you remember doing that?
Vaguely.
And what's the basis for doing that?
His background story.
His background story being he's in prison for trying to extort $20 million in property from Mr. Katzin. Is that the background story you're talking about?
No.
You're aware that he's been convicted of extortion, right?
I am.
Not just from Mr. Katzin. On several occasions. At least more than one. You're aware of that?
No.
Have you had any communications with Mr. Baranovsky?
No.
Have you had any communications with Andrei Stolbanov?
No.
Have you had any communications with Mr. Pavlov, who's in the complaint?
No.
What made you think about that? You may have?
Trying to give you the correct answer.
Do you know whether members of your team have had communications with Mr. Baranovsky?
Not aware of them having communications with him.
Do you know whether members of your team had communications with Mr. Stolbanov?
I'm not aware.
Do you know whether Brown Rudnick has had communications with Mr. Stolbanov?
I'm not aware.
Do you know whether Mr. Stolbanov has met with Brown Rudnick?
I'm not aware.
Do you get reports on the investigation going on by your team in connection with this case?
Sometimes.
Are they in writing?
No.
Oral?
Yes.
Do you intentionally keep them from being written down?
No.
So why are they only giving you don't exchange emails about this case?
We exchange emails about lots of things.
And about this case?
Sometimes we do, yeah.
So there are writings about this case.
That wasn't your question before.
All right. Are there any writings that your team has given you about this case?
Yes,
And they're in emails.
I believe so.
All right. I don't know what that. All right. So let's go to the amended complaint, which we're going to mark as a new exhibit. So this is Exhibit 14, the verified amended complaint, which was filed on November 5th, 2014. You're familiar with that document, right?
Yep.
Read it more than once, I imagine?
What's the
Have
question?
you read it more than once? You've read it?
I've read the document.
Okay. You discuss it with anybody in the U.S. Attorney's Office?
I don't recall.
Did you review it before it was filed?
No,
Did anybody in your team review it before it was filed?
not that I'm aware of.
Let's look at paragraph 39. Okay, if you look at the last sentence in paragraph 39, it says, during the relevant period, the head of Moscow Tax Office number 25 was Yelena Kamina, who on information and belief is a member of the organization. And the head of the Moscow Tax Office number 28 was Stepanova, who had traveled to Larnaca in May of 2007 and on information and belief met with Kluyev to plan the $230 million fraud scheme. Do you see that?
I do.
Do you know, do you see that Ms. Kamina is described on information and belief as a member of the organization? Do you see that?
Yes.
But Ms. Stepanova is not. Do you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Did you discuss that with the U.S. Attorney's Office?
No.
So as far as you're concerned, Ms. Stepanova is not a member of the organization?
No.
To be clear, I am correct that in your view, Ms. Stepanova is not a member of the organization.
You're incorrect.
I am incorrect. All right. So in your view, Ms. Stepanova is a member of the organization.
Yes.
All right. And what facts lead you to believe Ms. Stepanova is a member of the organization?
Well, there's a number of facts.
Go ahead. What are they?
First of all, she was one of the people who approved the tax refund in one day on December 24th, 2007, the lion's share of the tax refund.
Anything else?
That her husband or ex-husband, depending on whose version you believe, received around somewhere between $7 and $10 million in his account at Credit Suisse from the fraud, following the fraud.
Okay. Anything else?
that the two of them, husband and wife, purchased real estate in Dubai.
Anything else?
And then the travel records of the Stepanov and Stepanova.
To Larnaca, the ones we referred to before.
Also the travel records to Dubai and various other places.
What other places?
I don't remember off the top of my head.
Anything else?
Those are all I can recall at the moment.
Okay. So, first of all, you've said this is the Kluyev organization. Is that right?
That's correct.
And who's in the Kluyev organization?
Olga Stepanova, Elena Kimina.
Well, these are just the functionaries. I mean, who, isn't that true? These aren't the planning people.
What's the question?
Who is, let me amend the question. Who's at the top of the Kluyev organization?
Dmitry Kluyev,
And who are his deputies?
Andrei Pavlov,
Anybody else?
yes,
Who else?
Artyom Kuznetsov,
All right. Anybody else?
Oleg Uzhumtsov,
Who's that?
Oleg Uzhumtsov.
How do you spell that?
I don't know.
Uzhumtsov.
You can ask your clients; they'll know.
Why will my clients know?
Just seems like they would know how to spell a Russian name like that.
That's just a crack, right? You were just being sarcastic?
Just.
You think it's funny being here, them having all their property attached in the United States? It's worth being sarcastic about? Is that what you think?
What's the question?
Whether you think it's appropriate to be sarcastic in a situation like this? You have an answer for my question?
I'm thinking.
Of another sarcastic remark?
No.
You're not suggesting Mr. Uzhnetsov has any relationship to Mr. Katza, do you?
I don't know.
What's his profession?
He's in the Interior Ministry. Was in the Interior Ministry.
Anybody else in the Kluyev lieutenant circle?
Yes, Pavel Karpov.
Yes.
Viktor Markelov.
The sawmill operator?
Yep.
Who else?
Vyacheslav Klebnikov.
The other person who was convicted?
He was convicted, yeah.
Who else?
The deputies of Stepanova and Kimina, whose names escape me at the moment.
Anybody else?
There are probably others, but I don't have them on the top of my head.
Have you traced any of the $230 million to Mr. Kluyev?
It went through Universal Savings Bank, which was his bank.
Any of it stay there and he pocketed it?
I don't know.
You have no information to suggest that happened, right?
He was involved in the money laundering operations
How was he involved?
by providing the bank.
Did he actually order money moved?
I don't know what I wasn't a witness to his actions.
So you don't have any information about him receiving money or ordering the movement of money?
No.
Mr. Pavlov, you traced any money to the $230 million fraud to Mr. Pavlov?
Actually, let me correct my previous statement. I believe that there's some money that was traced to Kluyev and Pavlov and to companies that they were involved in Cyprus
Traced by who?
by my team.
Did you give that information to the U.S. Attorney's Office?
I don't remember.
Is it anywhere in Exhibit 1?
I don't know.
Did you trace any, well, if it's not in Exhibit 1, where would it have been given?
I don't know.
Well, if you look at the tracing, which is Exhibit tab 8, you take your time, but it makes no reference that I'm aware of to companies being controlled by Kluyev or Pavlov.
Which section should I be looking at?
Any section you want, but the tracing, the bank transactions are in tab 8. What? What number? We marked his. What number is that? What? Thought we were.
No, not in this document. Can I ask for a break?
Sure.
Time is 2:38 p.m. We are off the record.
We want